Most home buyers think affordability is about price. In reality, it's shaped by a set of systems most people never see, and that's where confusion starts. I'm George, and this is Distinctive Living, where we talk about how homes actually work and what ownership looks like beyond the listing price. I'm seeing more and more first time buyers choose new construction for their first homes, a noticeable shift from the era when fixer uppers were the default affordable option for younger buyers. When I bought my first house in 1994, it was a fixer upper at the very edge of what was then considered the Heights, before gentrification reached that far. It was all I could afford at the time, so I renovated it. Twice. That's a story for another day, but let's just say that path worked for me back then. At the time, older homes near the city offered affordability in exchange for effort. New construction, on the other hand, was either high-end urban infill or large suburban homes built far from the city where long commutes were the price of space and modern features. What's changed isn't just how people look at housing, it's how people work, how cities function, and how affordability itself is created. So, what is affordable housing? If we want to understand affordable housing today, not emotionally, not ideologically, but realistically, we need to step back and answer a few basic questions. What do we actually mean when we say affordable housing? What systems produce it, and how do they function? How do buyers best navigate those systems? And what does affordable ownership look like over time? Those are the questions we're going to ask. So let's jump right in. Before we talk about what affordable housing is, let's talk about what it's not. It's not cheap housing, it's not inferior houses, it's not subsidized housing, it's not dilapidated houses. Affordable housing is housing whose cost aligns with how people actually earn, live, and plan within a market area. It's about availability, predictability, risk tolerance, cash flow, and timing. Affordability isn't just price, it's manageability. And it's no longer possible to manage affordability on an individual basis. The best we can hope for is to manage our position within a complex system. So let's talk about those systems, the people and industries that operate within them, and how they work. Not perfectly, not evenly, not always fairly, but deliberately. Let's be clear, those systems don't exist to solve affordability as a moral, political, or societal problem. They exist to solve it as a logistical and financial one. They exist within and because of our free market economy. They operate through access to land, through economies of scale, through repetition, and through predictable outcomes. Not perfect outcomes, predictable ones. We'll explore the systems to gain an understanding of how affordability is created and how it's changed over the years. It's a complex interplay of financing, labor, infrastructure, and consumer demand. When they align successfully, families are housed, communities are built, and generational wealth is formed. What actually affects affordability in the housing market, and what systems drive those factors? Affordability doesn't change randomly. It responds to a handful of pressures that tend to move together. One of the biggest is land. Affordable housing almost always follows affordable land. When land closer to city centers becomes scarce or expensive, affordability doesn't disappear, it relocates. Builders seek out land that can still be acquired in large swaths, and buyers follow what they can still manage financially. Another major factor is the builder's economy of scale. Large-scale building reduces costs through repetition. Plans are reused, materials are ordered and delivered in bulk, crews move efficiently from site to site. Processes and decisions are standardized. That efficiency doesn't make housing perfect, but it does make it predictable. And predictability is a key ingredient in affordability. Labor and materials matter too. Let's take the old gold standard for affordability, the fixer-upper. Renovation depends on individual job sites far apart from each other. It requires job-specific work, specialized trades, daily decision-making, and unpredictable timelines. That makes costs volatile and hard to predict. New construction is built around systems designed to limit that volatility by coordinating labor and materials across hundreds of homes, all located on adjacent job sites. Financing plays a role as well. For most large builders, financing is often bundled into the product itself, along with administration, legal work, document filing, and other items that would appear as fees in other transactions. That can make monthly numbers look palpable when interest rates are high because risk is spread and timelines are controlled. It's not magic, it's packaging. And finally, there's the trade-off. In the past, affordability often meant compromising on condition. Today, it more often means compromising on location. Distance has replaced disrepair as the price of entry. None of this is accidental. It's all driven by a free market economy. These systems exist because they create predictable affordability at scale. Not perfectly and not for everyone, but consistently enough to keep access open where individual efforts alone no longer can. That's why new construction is currently where affordability lives now for many buyers. This isn't the first time housing affordability has reorganized itself around large-scale building. We've seen this many times before. The most dramatic example came during the years after World War II, when builders had to respond to a very different set of pressures. But the mechanism was the same. Highways opened access to land that had once been considered too far out. Construction scaled up. Standardized plans replaced custom work. And affordability followed that scale. That era is often remembered as one of optimism. The economy was expanding, wages were rising, debt levels were lower, households were younger, and the expectation was that tomorrow would be a better day. Builders were building into growth. Today's moment looks similar on the surface, but the context is very different. In the years after World War II, large-scale building was happening along expanding opportunity. Wages were rising, debt was manageable, and households were early in their economic lives. Scale felt like progress. Today, large-scale building is happening in a more constrained environment. Debt levels are higher, labor is tighter, costs are more volatile, and economic growth is uneven. And for many first-time buyers, the margin for error is thin. Yet, builders are still building. Not because the conditions are ideal, but because demand hasn't disappeared. It's adapted, and builders have adapted with that demand. Just as highways once redefined what counted as accessible, changes in how and where people work have reshaped how distance is experienced. Remote and hybrid work didn't eliminate geography, but they changed its weight in the equation. For earlier generations, scale expanded opportunity. For many buyers today, scale preserves access. That distinction matters. The system is doing what systems have always done under pressure, reorganized around constraint. The goal isn't abundance, it's predictability. And predictability is what allows affordability to exist at all in a high-cost environment. It's important to recognize that while these systems are designed to produce predictable results, the systems themselves are not simple. They're complex, layered, and highly dependent on context. They vary by market, they vary by builder, and they vary by timing. Two homes that look similar on paper may be produced inside very different systems, with different assumptions, different constraints, and different margins for error. Predictability doesn't mean uniformity, it means managed complexity. In a predictable system, the biggest risks don't come from chaos, they come from misunderstanding how the system you're in actually works. Once you understand that affordability today is created by predictable systems, and that those systems are complex and vary by market, The next question becomes how buyers navigate them. Much of that confusion begins with language. In new construction, buyers are typically introduced to a sales representative early in the process. That person becomes the primary point of contact, explaining options, timelines, pricing structures, and next steps. The relationships often feel personal, helpful, and reassuring, because they are. But that title causes some common misunderstanding. Builder sales representatives are employees of the builder, not agents of the buyer. Their frame of reference comes from their employment role inside the builder's organization, not from a duty owed to the buyer. Any agency they exercise is limited and implied solely for carrying out the builder's established processes. Their responsibility is to the builder to present approved options, follow pricing rules, move contracts through the system, and ensure the builder's requirements are met. That doesn't make the role misleading or adversarial. It makes it administrative. Buyer agency serves a different function. A buyer's agent is not embedded in the builder's system. Their responsibility is not to administer it, but to independently evaluate it, to explain where discretion exists and where it does not, to identify risks that fall outside the sales process, and to help buyers understand how today's decisions affect tomorrow's outcomes. Both roles may provide information, but only one carries responsibility for the buyer's interests. Some people may assume that helpful access equals advocacy. In reality, systems are designed to operate smoothly in the aggregate, not to protect individual outcomes. Builder systems are not designed to deliver the best possible outcome for every buyer. They're designed to deliver consistent, predictable, and scalable outcomes across thousands of homes. That distinction matters. Good enough doesn't mean careless or low quality. It means optimized for efficiency. Standardized options, fixed timelines, pre-negotiated pricing, and streamlined decision paths that work for most buyers most of the time. The challenge for buyers is that value doesn't always live where the systems are optimized. Some value lives inside the builder's system, in incentives, in timing, lot selection, upgrade trade-offs, or financing structures that are easy to miss if you don't know where discretion exists. Other value lies outside the builder's system, in inspections, contract terms, long-term operating costs, resale implications, and risk mitigations that the system does not evaluate for. Maximizing value requires understanding both of these variables. This is where buyer agency becomes practical. A buyer's agent helps identify where the builder's system is flexible and where it's not, which choices meaningfully affect long-term value versus cosmetic appeal, which protections must be added externally because the system assumes compliance, not optimization. In a system designed to deliver good enough, the best outcomes don't come from resisting the system. They come from knowing how to use it and when to step outside of it. In a system designed to produce consistent, code-compliant homes at scale, inspections often feel redundant to buyers. After all, the home is new, and it's been built under modern building codes. It has passed mutual inspections. In many cases, buyers are told, explicitly or implicitly, that everything has already been checked. This is where another common misunderstanding arises. Throughout construction, different parts of the home may be inspected at different moments, by the builder, by trades, or by local authorities. Critical checkpoints are typically reviewed. Major systems are signed off. The process is structured to ensure the home can move forward. But those reviews are partial by design. They don't involve an exhaustive top-to-bottom evaluation of the home as a complete system. No one pauses the process to step back and ask whether all of the pieces, framing, mechanicals, finishes, drainage, ventilation, and performance are working together as intended. They just check to make sure all the elements meet a minimum standard. That's not a failure of the system, it's how the system is designed to function efficiently. Behind the scenes, that efficiency is managed by another key role, the builder's site supervisor, sometimes called a construction foreman or a project manager, depending on the builder. This is the person responsible for owning the construction process itself. They coordinate trades, manage sequencing, address issues as they arise, and keep the build moving forward, not just for one home, but for every home under construction in the neighborhood. Their focus is operational. They ensure that critical steps are completed, that work progresses in the proper order, and that problems are corrected as they're discovered along the way. When this role is carried out diligently, fewer issues tend to surface later. When it's rushed or overextended, small gaps can accumulate, not because anyone intended them, but because no one role is tasked with stepping back to evaluate the finished home in its entirety. That comprehensive review simply isn't part of the site supervisor's job description. An independent buyer's inspection is often the first time a home is reviewed as a whole. Rather than checking individual boxes at isolated stages, the inspector evaluates the finished product, all in one pass, looking at how the sum of the parts performs, where small issues compound, and where workmanship, alignment, or sequencing create risk. It gives a snapshot of the home before it passes from builder to buyer. Inspections are not about disruption. They're about informed ownership. In a process optimized for speed and consistency, inspections gives buyers the opportunity to review the entire process, see the full picture, and address issues before they accept responsibility for the home as delivered. Near the end of construction, buyers are introduced to another person from the builder's team, often called a quality assurance representative, warranty coordinator, or more informally, the blue tape guy. It's another person who will feel like they've got your back, and in many ways they do. They walk the home with you, listen to concerns, and help translate both your observations and any inspection findings into a list of items the builder agrees to address before closing. They want to ensure you're happy with your finished home. Their support, however, operates within the builder's rules, standards, and timelines. They can help ensure that identified deficiencies are corrected as promised, but they cannot independently expand what the builder defines as acceptable or required. When buyers understand this, the blue tape walk becomes what it's meant to be, the final opportunity to confirm that issues already identified, particularly through inspection, have been addressed, rather than substitute for an evaluation itself. Affordability doesn't end at closing. The systems that make new construction affordable are designed to work at the front end of ownership. Predictable pricing, controlled costs, standardized financing, and a clear path to purchase. But affordability doesn't end at closing. It evolves over time. Ownership introduces a different set of realities. Ongoing maintenance, insurance, taxes, repairs, and gradual improvements that don't always show up immediately in resale value. These costs aren't a sign that something went wrong. They're simply part of owning a physical asset. In a balanced market, homes don't usually create instant equity. Early years are often about stability rather than upside. Mortgage balances decline slowly. Appreciation, when it comes, tends to accrue over time, not all at once. That doesn't make homeownership a poor decision, it makes it a long game. What systems can't comprehend is timing. Markets move, interest rates change, neighborhoods mature at different speeds. For many buyers, the real value of a home shows up gradually through predictability, use, and the ability to build equity over years rather than months. Understanding that helps reset expectations. Buying well isn't about winning on day one. It's about entering ownership with clarity, knowing what costs are likely, what returns are uncertain, and what responsibilities are consciously being accepted. When affordability is understood not just as the purchase price, but as a long-term relationship between cost, use, and value, buyers are better positioned to make decisions they're comfortable living with, financially and otherwise. If there's one takeaway from all of this, it's that home affordability isn't just about price. It's shaped by multiple systems working at once: availability, pricing structures, construction processes, financing, inspections, warranties, and a long term ownership cost. None of these systems are simple on their own, and they don't always explain themselves clearly when they overlap. That's why buying a home can feel overwhelming, even when everything appears to be working as intended. The good news is buyers aren't meant to navigate this alone. A good buyer's agent doesn't replace these systems or fight them. They help you understand how they fit together, where discretion exists, and when it makes sense to bring in other vetted professionals like inspectors, lenders, or specialists to fill the gaps. Affordability improves when decisions are informed, not rushed, not assumed, and not made in isolation. If there's a part of this process you'd like to explore further, whether it's inspections, builder incentives, long term ownership costs, or how different neighborhoods mature over time, let me know in the comments. Those questions help shape our conversations in the future.